Welcome to Balancing Chaos with
Kelley
and Gretchen, and today we have our special guest, my dear friend,
Jamie,
who is here to talk about things that you don't know you should be prepared for, but you should be prepared for. Is that a good way to explain it?
I think that's an excellent way to explain it.
That's an excellent way to explain it. So we talked about our New Year's resolutions last week, and big ones for me and Kelley all have to do with finances, and we're working on it. I've been updating my You Need a Budget every day, and, you know, it's good. It's interesting to see where the money goes. Like, one of the things that was unexpected was that I got taxed on my tuition waiver because my tuition was more than $5,000.
Oh, yeah.
So my check was less than I was expecting. I was like, what? Mm-hmm. But it was the extra tax. So now I know that I have to plan for that at the end of the year. But only the end of this year, and then I'll be done with that MBA, so it'll be fine.
So it taxes you too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just the significant others.
After $5,500. Oh. So I got taxed on, so my last pay, and not like by the classes you take, so it was my last paycheck for the year, I got taxed on an extra $3,500.
I got hit by that one in grad school too.
Yeah, and it was like, wait.
Where'd that come from?
I was waiting, I thought I'd have like this amount of money. I kind of plan on it, but because I do have my $1,000 emergency fund, it's not going to impact me too much, except for that it puts me back $200 on my goals for paying off the student loan and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so how was your financial week?
I made zero progress. I just stopped at Whole Foods and spent $400.
But, okay.
But I seriously bought, like, meat for 2 months. And I stocked up. So it was a big shop. It wasn't for 1 week.
Right.
That's like an entire month's budget for me for food.
Yeah, well, I have 4 people, and my kids eat a lot.
And for us, Whole Foods is 2 hours away.
Yeah.
You were down there for work anyway.
Yes.
I need to schedule a work trip to Portland so that I can go to Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and do all that, because I'm out of a few things.
I only bought things that were less expensive than I can get them at Hannaford, which is a lot of stuff.
Especially for the organic, natural.
For what I'm looking for, yeah. Because they have their own brand that Hannaford doesn't have. So that's why.
Yeah.
But don't worry, the woman at Talbot's, because I hit up Talbot's too. I said, she asked me how I was liking living up in Bangor. I said it would be great if I had Talbot's Petites and Whole Foods. Mm-hmm. And she goes, whole paycheck. She gave me the lecture too, Jamie. It's okay. I get it.
Oh my gosh.
Did you use a cash card or a card
cash? I did.
Cash? There you go.
I only bought 2 things though. They didn't have much today. And actually, one of the things I ordered from the store, because I learned if you order. Here's a tip. If you order it in the store from online, even if you have the code, you'll get 2-day express shipping. But if you order it online from the catalog, it takes like 10 days.
Interesting.
From the online store.
Good to know. So, Jamie, my dear friend who, when I first started at my current job, how I met Jamie is that she came to my little cubicle and she said, "We are the young club. You're coming to lunch with us." And now we are the middle age club. Because that was 11 years ago.
Oh my gosh. Time flies.
Yeah, so 11 years ago. And so Jamie was one of my first work friends at my current job. And she has since left for actually Kelley's employer. So you could be part of, she's young.
Yeah.
You could just start a new young club.
Our own young club.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So I've known Jamie for a long time.
A long time.
And she has a unique story and I'm going to let her talk about how to be prepared for the unexpected. Is that a good?
I think that's a great way to put it. Like, that's a great way to start this conversation. So, about 3 years ago now, I was unexpectedly widowed. And this conversation's not about, that whole process. That's a different conversation, a different podcast. But this conversation's going to be about, like, how to prepare for this thing that you can't possibly even begin to prepare for. And the kinds of stuff that I wish somebody had sat down and told me when I was 25, as opposed to figuring it out on my own when I was 35.
So you were 35 when you were widowed.
I was 34.
34.
Actually, but I was turning 35 a couple of months later. So
and you had a child.
35. And I had a 7-year-old son. He had just turned 7. And so it was like, it's a complicated time. But even worse than that, I was working on my PhD. And so I was practically unemployed. Like I had a graduate stipend, but that was like, you're practically unemployed.
You're definitely.
You have no money.
You're on the verge of.
Exactly. You're on the verge of poverty. And so my husband, he committed suicide. And so not only was this unexpected, but it was an unexpected upheaval in our entire lives. The emotional piece aside, I had to suddenly figure out my job and, how to deal with all of the real life stuff behind this huge life change. I had been the primary breadwinner in our household before I decided to go back for my PhD. And so a lot of the finances were always kind of under my umbrella. And then I went back to school and suddenly it shifted from being under my control to under his name. So the insurance was under his name and all of the stuff was under his name at that point. And so it was going back and trying to rework your life and trying to figure out everything at this moment. And so this conversation is kind of what I learned from that process, I would say. Yeah.
And the other part is that it's sort of, I always say this about childbirth, which is interesting because it's kind of like the beginning and the end. But if you could have a newborn without all the stresses of postpartum and childbirth and pain and all that, if you could right now be handed a newborn, we would all be great. We'd be like, yep. I read the book. I can look up the YouTube video. This is how I breastfeed. I'm going to sleep fine because I am not suffering the physical effects. So learning all this in the moment of grief and death is almost the same thing. Like right now, you're in a space that you can say, this is what you should do. Would you recommend we do it while we are not in that moment?
Oh my gosh. Life is so much easier if you have all the stuff figured out. And so when I'm talking about the stuff, I'm talking about, just having all of your paperwork in one place and making sure that both people's names are on accounts and making sure that you have the passwords to, your Netflix account. The stupid little stuff that you don't ever even think about until you have to think about it. And then all of a sudden it becomes very, very important. So Netflix account's a great example. I still have my husband's Netflix account. It's his name on it. So when I log in, it says, welcome Jeremiah, or Jeremiah's, picks or top recommendations or whatever it is. And it's every single time I log into Netflix, that's what I see. And so it's these constant reminders, which aren't a bad reminder in any way. It's just you think about all the things that you don't think about beforehand. So it never actually goes away. But if I had the password to that darn Netflix account, I could change it, and I just don't. So I would have to deal with, calling Netflix and saying account change, whatever. But this is a good conversation for anybody to have with their partner before something terrible happens. And a lot of young women don't do it. And a lot of young women find themselves in a position where they allow their partner to kind of take over a lot of aspects of their lives. Gretchen doesn't do it. I don't know if you do it. Do you do your finances in your house?
I used to, but I'm totally guilty of it right now. It's bad. I know. You know what? I will. Yeah. This was one of my financial goals, was to log in to all the accounts and just see what's going on in there.
If something happened,
used to be, you couldn't spend $1 and I would know about it.
So if something happened, would you be able to access those accounts without too much thought?
Probably not.
Okay.
I do have life insurance. Yes. I do have a term life insurance for quite a bit of money because my husband was a stay-at-home dad for just until recently, until last year. But we got the term life insurance when we were 27, 26 maybe. And I wanted it for a lot because I knew if I didn't have a stay-at-home dad, I would have to have childcare, and I might want to just cry for a year, or who knows what I might need to do. So we have quite a bit of life insurance for that. That's one thing I do have.
Do you know where it is? If you had to all of a sudden find the policy?
So all that is in one spot. Okay. I do know that.
So we have life insurance, and we actually got it before this, but it almost solidified it to have it. And actually the reason why I got it was somebody else, a very tangential coworker who worked in my office for 6 months and then left, and then I saw her husband's name in the obituaries, and I was like, oh, and I was pregnant at the time, and I was like, I am getting life insurance today, and I literally called that day, and it worked out that actually Dave got...
And it was easy, right?
It was so easy.
It's so easy, and it's so cheap.
And it's so cheap. It really is.
So I used... And I'll be open with my numbers. I used Select Quote. We are not sponsored by them, but I went through Select Quote. They gave us, they broker policies. We have a policy with a legit life insurance company, TransAmerica. That's actually like the big building in San Francisco. They have a big pointy building, or they used to. I don't know if they still do, but it's a legit company because they have a big building somewhere, right? That's good logic.
Right.
But we are covered.
Enron did too.
We are covered. We're each covered for about $500,000. It costs Dave $25 a month, and it cost me $35 because I am overweight. And when they did it, I was pregnant. They wouldn't cover me when I was pregnant because I had gestational diabetes. So they wanted to wait till after I was post-pregnancy, and then they came and did another physical at our house. So we filled out the thing on SelectQuote. A nurse came to our house. We had to supply a urine sample. We had to be weighed. They did blood pressure. They did a little family health history. And within a month, we were insured. It was so stupidly easy. I wish I had done it when I was 26.
It's a lot.
Because you're probably paying a lot less.
A lot less, probably half, and for the same coverage.
Yeah. And the way that I came to that figure was, my idea was, I want to pay off the house and sit in it and cry for 10 years without having to think about anything else.
Exactly.
So that was how I came to that figure. So if you're wondering why I came to that figure, that's how I came to it. And at the time, our house, like, we owed more than $100,000 in our house. And I'm sure if anyone's listening from, like, Boston or San Francisco with the big pointy tower, they're like, oh, that poor woman lives in a shoebox down by the river.
Oh,
It's a very nice house.
It is. And last week, my insecurity was calling Gretchen's house small, and I kept saying, oh, well, my house costs 3 times more to run. And I said, oh, they're gonna think I live in a mansion and Gretchen's living in a shack next door. It's just not true.
No, I live in a small house, and I said that in the HGTV podcast. And my house is about 1,000 square foot, and Kelley's is like 2,000 square feet, which is still, and for many parts of the country, that is a very small. Like, one of the designers I love is Susanka or something like that. And she talks about the not so big house, and her not so big houses are all at least 2,000 square feet. So
how big is this house?
About 25.
Oh yeah, this is big. We're in a really big house in Little City tonight. We're cheating on Fairmount.
So I have the life insurance, and I joke. Joke isn't the right word, but I would say I hope that this money goes to waste forever.
Absolutely.
I hope that I never, and I have it. It goes until after the girls are out of college, with the idea that by that point our house is paid off. We have savings. We have that money on hand already to sit and cry if we wanted to. But I hope that it is the biggest waste of $60 a month that I ever have.
Now, you see, I got to jump in there, because after you got yours and you harped on me, insurance. And so eventually I went out and I listened to you, and I went through SelectQuote, and I did the exact same progress. And they came to the house, and they, take your blood pressure and all of that. And for me, it was going to be $27 a month. And I thought, great, sign me up. There's my $600,000 of coverage, and we're all set. Peace of mind. I call that my peace of mind check every month. My husband, however, had some cholesterol issues, and so it was going to be much more expensive for him. And so we decided, we'll hold off until, he brings this under control.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he never brought it under control, and, he ended his life at about 1.5 years, 2 years after that. And so it might have been a moot point regardless. However, I wish that he had life insurance, because depending on the timing, it might have been okay, and I might have actually gotten a life insurance check. But as it was, I found myself as a 34-year-old woman with a 7-year-old son with absolutely no financial resources whatsoever. So the first thing I tell any young woman after they get married, and I tell every single one of them I talk to, go get life insurance. Get it today. It is worth the $25 or $30 a month that you're going to be paying for it. Just stop drinking Starbucks. It would do whatever it takes. Make this happen.
It's $1 a day.
Make it happen in your life, because it can be life-changing. It can remove so much worry later on that you shouldn't have to worry about in that case. And you don't know what's going to happen. It might be a car wreck. It might be, who knows. But just to have that peace of mind in there is like this huge relief. And I still feel it today. Like, I know that my son's taken care of if something happens to me, because I have life insurance, and that's not going to go away.
So he was full-time employed, and you were in school,
right?
And did you have health insurance, a school health insurance plan?
Well, no, I did not, because I went on his health insurance after I decided to go back to school. And so life insurance is a different piece. Health insurance is another big one. So if something happens to your partner, the health insurance ends within 30 days, and then you're going to have the option of COBRA. COBRA is I don't know what the acronym stands for, but it's the health insurance that you can pay for after like a life shift. However, it's like $600 or $700 a month. You're paying the full price, not the price.
The employer is paying nothing.
Yeah. And so, like, that's not an actually feasible option for a lot of families. That's not realistic.
Especially if you have no income.
Exactly. I was in a very, very lucky place where I could just switch over to my graduate student insurance, and it was expensive, but it wasn't as bad as COBRA would have been. But for a lot of families, that's not an option. And so all of a sudden, you're a young widow, you've got your kids at home, and you've got no insurance. And so all of a sudden, if you've got no life insurance and no health insurance, and perhaps you're underemployed a little bit, or you were relying on your husband's income a little bit, all of a sudden you can find yourself in a very dark place very quickly. So,
well, and you touched on something too, because James was a stay-at-home dad. I think so I'm a working mom, you're a working mom, you're a working mom. And one of the big things that I feel like stay-at-home moms need to be really aware of is their own financial picture. And that includes making sure that you are insured, because even if something happens to you, the partner, the breadwinner, is fucked completely. Like, they are.
They really are.
And also, that breadwinner should also be contributing to a retirement account for you. And that there should be some investments in your name, because this is when it grows and this is when it happens. And
not a pension, a retirement account. Very different thing.
Even if it's a Roth IRA, which they can do, like, there's a million different things. And again, we are not financial planners, but
we did learn with James that you can
experience.
You can contribute to a Roth IRA as a stay-at-home parent, because we did that for James. And we didn't used to think you could. We looked into it. So you can, and you should.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to mention, just because you've mentioned that he took his own life, a lot of life insurance policies, if you've had them for at least 2 years, they will still pay out. I'm also in the show notes going to include some phone numbers to hotlines for suicide prevention, because I don't want anyone to hear this and think, oh, I've had my life insurance for 2 years.
Now's the time.
Now's the time. But that's a sort of a misconception among suicide awareness that you would not get a life insurance policy. And
you have to have the life insurance policy.
Yes. He did have a small one through his employer,
He did have a small one through his employer. So the employer typically pays out 1 year of salary. That's what those insurance policies typically are. And so that was a huge, huge benefit for us for, just some of the expenses that come up with end of life, but also we had some things that had to be taken care of because I was not working full time for such a long time, and it helped me to transition into my new position and all of those things. So that was a huge help for us, which doesn't happen for every family, and so I'm very grateful. But it all ties back to the fact that you've got to have your stuff in order. And having this conversation with your partner beforehand makes it so much easier. And so in this house, what we have today is what I call the red file. It's the red file because that's the color of file folders I had at the time, but it sort of just works. And so
it works, so it's like caution, warning, this is important.
Well, I have the red file, and I have in Sharpie on the front of it, start here, in case something happens to me. And so after...
And I know about this, like the other thing too is that I know about this file because you are a single parent now. If something were to happen, there are several of us that know, like if something were to happen, we would, I would throw up. And I would punch something, and then we'd be like, "We gotta get the red file." Like that is like those.
Those are the three things.
Well, I mean, I would get Finn first, and then I'd get the red file. I wouldn't leave them upstairs.
Anyway, like the red file, it's all the stuff that I wish I had together before this happened to me. It's all the things that I had to collect together very quickly when I was grieving, and when there was a lot of turmoil, and when I was going to funerals, and when I was hosting family, and when everybody descends on you. You still have to find all of these papers and all of this stuff and start pulling them together. And it sucks really bad, but you have to do it. And so if you have it all together beforehand, then you don't have to worry about it in that moment, and you can just grieve. And so the red file is things like, it's basic stuff like your passport and your marriage certificate and all of those bits and pieces that you need anyway. But it's also things like, here's my insurance policy, and here is my retirement account number, and here's the list of accounts that I have. And I don't keep passwords in there. I keep those as a Google Doc that, I can share with anyone. But potentially it could be like the accounts and the passwords if that's something that works for you. It's things like where I have retirement accounts with multiple employers stretching back my entire career, and so it's across multiple states, and all kinds of accounts that are small some places and big other places, and like here's how you compile all of that information. And it's little things like I don't know, your phone bill, your electric bill, all these things that they're going to come due the next month, whether your partner dies or not. And you have to very quickly figure out, how do I pay that? That wasn't direct deposit. I don't know what he was doing every month to pay. Was he writing a check? Was he doing a check from the bank? I don't know. And so it puts it all in one tidy place. The most important thing that I've used it for is like housing documents. So like the lien on the house was in there, and this is a whole different conversation. I also talk to young women about make sure that you and your partner's name is on anything, everything. So here's a good example. Like if you and your partner aren't on the title to your car, well, that car suddenly after they die, it becomes a burden, and you have to petition the state to get the car's title transferred to your name, and then you have to go back and forth on this whole process. It takes months just to be able to sell the car. Now if you have a lien still on that car, if you still owe on the car, then you can pay the payment, and that's fine, but you still need it to be transferred to your name, or you can't get rid of this extra car that's just sitting in your
driveway. You had his car for how long did it take?
The car for me, it probably took about 3 months of back and forth just trying to get the title into my name. But your house can also be a very real issue. So you decide, I'm just going to put the house in their name. He's got the better credit score. Well, all of a sudden you were a young widow or even an older widow, and you can't really make the mortgage very well on your own, and you were relying on his income, but the house was just in his name. You have no right to that piece of property. And so if your name isn't actually on the loan, isn't actually on the title, you can run into very real problems later on.
Especially, because he didn't die with a will.
Exactly.
So you had to go through probate to get all that. So you still have you still would be considered owning the house because you were married and all of that.
Right.
But you still it's a lot of legwork. I remember, and can I share the story of getting the cell phone with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So she called me and she was like, all right. And she was a very proud flip phone owner for many years.
Flip phone. Man, this was a great
She loved it. It was like militarized.
It was the convoy.
Convoy. She loved her flip phone.
I loved that phone. But the day came.
The day came after this, and then once you were working, and it was like, okay. And I said, honestly, the thing that helps me juggle, and I am not a single parent, was having a smartphone that I could be available for whoever needed me at whatever time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's
a blessing and a curse.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So she said, will you go with me to pick out a cell phone? I was like, sure. This is like my dream. So we went to the store, and I was struck by, we go, and Jamie opens up her bag, pulls out a folder and says, and the guy says, hi, how can I help you? Like, can't wait to offer you a screaming deal on a Samsung Galaxy. Like, he's just totally sales mode. And she's like, hi, yes. My husband died. The account is in his name. I need to cancel one number. I need to buy a new phone. Here's the death certificate. She just was
That's
like...
what you have to take with you everywhere.
And the guy was like, oh, okay, all right. And so, but she walked around. I mean, I think you carried a death certificate for a long time.
Absolutely, and I continue to carry it. Whenever I travel internationally with my son, I kept my maiden name when I got married. That was fine for me. That's what felt right to me. However, my son has my husband's last name. And so when we travel internationally, I have my name and he has his, and I have to actually carry a marriage license and a death certificate on my deceased husband in order just to do border crossings, like to get back into the country with this kid who's obviously mine, who's 10 years old now, but I still have to carry them. And at every single time we present our passport at the customs agent, they also ask for the death certificate and the marriage license just to prove that this kid whose last name doesn't match me is actually mine. So yeah, it keeps on going and going and going. It's something that you always, I keep it on my phone now. There's a photograph of it. Like, it's so much easier than carrying an actual paper document. And that's why I'm grateful for the smartphone.
Did you get a new one? You did get a new one because the other one broke, right?
Yeah, it sure did.
Oh, she's on her second smartphone now. I'm so proud.
So did you get a job right away?
Well, I was very lucky in that because I was working on my PhD for a university in a related topic, the university was very interested in hiring me anyway. And so I went to a leader and said, I need a job. And they said, let's see what we can do for you. And so I was so lucky.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen in real life. That only happens in my unique situation.
Right.
And so I was...
Well, and
able
particularly
to start working pretty fast. However, it meant that I couldn't finish my PhD. The demands of real life and the PhD life don't really mesh.
Are you ABD at this point?
I haven't finished my comprehensive exams, so
You could still finish it.
or I could not.
Or you could not.
Okay.
You could not.
Well, and she had a career too in higher ed before going back for the
going
PhD.
back, yes.
So it wasn't like student widow. It was sort of, there was a career in the middle there.
And there. So, and you know what? I'm okay with it either way. And that's something that we study in the academy. It's something that you have to understand that the needs of adult learners are different and they have stuff that happens in their life. So I am one of those students now where I'm just sort of taking some time off until I get to the next phase. And I only have 8 more years until he's 18, so maybe I'll finish that.
So I don't have a red file yet, but that's one of my New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
I have but we have our Google Doc. And our Google Doc is sort of like a red file, although I love my husband dearly. And I actually said he was looking for the password for one of our accounts. And the way we manage it, we do not put our actual passwords in this Google Doc, but most of our passwords are based off various personal code sayings that if you saw it, you'd be like, I have no idea what this means. But if Dave Rye sees it, we know exactly what that means. So he was looking for a password. I'm like, it's in the Google Doc. And he's like, what Google Doc? And I literally texted Jamie. I'm like, Jamie, if I die, remind Dave that there's a Google Doc. So she's my person too, because I was like, I literally even use the colors in Google Docs, and I made the file orange, and it's at the top, and it's called important info. There is no, I can't make it any brighter.
Do you have the Google death message?
No,
This is one you don't know about. So there is a setting in Google where if they don't hear from you, if you don't have any activity in the account for a certain amount of time, it'll send a message to whoever you designate as your message person.
Oh, that's interesting.
You can write them a message and it'll give them access to your Google
I don't think
account.
that your husband had that.
No.
Because he still pops up on my birthdays. And, what was it the other day that I was I'll search for things in my email and I'll get and I was like,
that's brutal.
So I have a Google Doc. You can tell Dave too. He knows about it. It's shared with him. He has access to it. And it does list, I've actually listed out our accounts. The numbers are on there and then code for the logins so that he or I could figure it out. I think I need to update the Netflix password, though. I don't know if that one's in there.
Seriously, don't leave the Netflix password as the last thing. This will continue to haunt you.
Oh, that's terrible.
It is. But if you don't know somebody else's password, you don't know their password.
Right.
So you just go with it.
We use my mother-in-law's Netflix account, and the password is...
What's the password, Kelley?
And I don't even know. It's so complicated.
Well, then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So we keep all our stuff in a safe. So do you have this in a safe?
No, I have it in a file cabinet.
Because
so Gretchen can get it.
We do have ours in a fireproof safe, all of this stuff. But it's not... I don't have the passwords. I probably should get the passwords. Maybe James has it, and I just have never talked to him about it.
I know
we have this stuff, but I don't know about the passwords.
Get your Google Doc and get your Google death message.
Wow.
So the other thing, do you guys have wills?
We do.
No.
Yes.
All right, I have to confess.
You don't have a will?
I can't decide who my son would go to.
Oh, that's tough.
It is the hardest decision in the whole world.
It is.
And so this is the reason that I haven't been able to assign the will. Luckily, I mean, the will is very important for estate matters, but all of everything goes to my son anyway. And so, for insurance, he is the beneficiary and all of those things. But I cannot decide, and so Yeah, it's a tough conversation.
We honestly don't have a will yet.
Conversation. Yeah.
But we're also like, we're not that, and all three of us are not complicated situations. We don't have prior relationships and prior children and all that kind of stuff. We don't have a will. That should be on our 2018 list too. My parents have wills, but they're older. But now I'm their executrix, which I think sounds like a badass name for a superhero.
Executrix?
Executrix.
That is different than an executor.
If you're a woman, you're an executrix.
Oh, I had no
It's
idea.
hot. But every time they leave, they're like, and the documents aren't there anymore, so don't go looking for them. But they'd be like, documents are on the desk if anything happens. And finally I said, you know what, Mom? Like, if anything happens, you're going to, like, if you're traveling, you're wherever. If it happens at home, they're going to bring you to Bangor to the hospital. Like, why don't I just keep the documents? Mm-hmm. So I now am in possession of the documents, but we each have safe deposit boxes at Bangor Savings, and they're actually like right next to each other. And we each are, and like we did this whole thing so that Dave and I, my parents, are all on each of them, so that if anything happens to any of us, we all have access, we all have keys. I'll tell you to tell Dave where they are, because he won't know. I should add that to the list of important information. But we put like important stuff in there. But I am like my parents' power of attorney, and I don't know, I get to pull the plug, whatever that is.
Healthcare power of attorney.
That one.
Yeah.
I keep trying, and nothing happens. I shouldn't say that. No, but I'm their power of attorney, because if anything happened, I'd be the one that would be in charge of making those decisions. But it's also, I know that, and it wouldn't be a surprise. So I'm joking about it, but it's something I've known for 10 years, 15 years, that I'm the one that's in charge of making those decisions. My sister is happy to let me be the one in charge of making those decisions. I'm just closer to them and all of that. But that's not, like, do you have that arrangement with your parents? Have you had those conversations with your parents?
We have. So all of our stuff is actually at Thompson Hamel, which they just opened an office in downtown Bangor. So they actually helped us. What did you use to get your life insurance?
Select Quote.
Okay, so we had ours through Thompson Hamel. So we have a financial advisor, and he put a quote out and gave us the best, showed us what the best bid is, and our retirement accounts. And actually, speaking of all your random retirement accounts, because I had that, because I had a lot of jobs before I landed in my final career, and they actually went and collected all of the paperwork for all those random
the little bitty
rollovers and put them all into one. And they did all the paperwork for me. They just sent it to me in the mail at the time before they were here, and it was just highlighted where I needed to sign, and now it's all in one account. Our disability insurance is through them. Everything is there. And our wills, there's a copy of our will there and at the attorney's office too, and in the fireproof safe.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that that's who we use.
Some of them you could also scan all of these documents and put them into Google file.
Yeah, Google.
Yeah.
And then get the Google Death Note. Wow.
And then have your husband forget about Google.
So Google...
His grief. It would just be his grief, right?
Google doesn't... We don't have Google Wine, but we do have Google Death. I had no idea.
I'm sure that's not what it's actually called.
Google Death.
I think it's like Google account recovery or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But let's face it, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So you have your list. Do you have other things on your list to...
I do, as a matter of fact. So, another important one. I did my homework. Well, I've been doing my homework for 3 years. Another important one is, you don't think about this stuff. You know who your doctor is. You know who your psychiatrist is. You know who your specialist is, and this and that and this. But nobody else does. It doesn't matter how many times you tell your partner, oh, well, Dr. Smith said. They're not actually retaining the name Dr. Smith. And so that's another important piece that you really need to write down somewhere and let everyone in the world know inside your red file that you go to Dr. Smith and you take this prescription medication and all of these things. Another big one is, and this is a tough one for young married couples or even couples who are not married yet but just starting out, or partnerships, or whoever you are. Tell your partner what you want as your end of life stuff. So I am not religious, much like Gretchen. My partner's family was very Catholic. He was not. He was an atheist. And so they wanted to, have services that were conforming to their religious needs. And that didn't work for me, and I knew that wouldn't have worked for him. But at the time, I was not in a place where I could stand up for any of these things. And so, our end of life services were very, very deeply religious, which he would have probably had a problem with. So having that conversation is really important. Like, do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? Do you want to be... And most people don't have this conversation until you're actually in a position where you have to have this conversation. The conversations that are hard, the conversations that you don't want to have with your parents either, but you really should. Just there's nothing wrong with talking about it. You just need to sit down and have your glass of wine, and
it's gonna happen to all of us.
It's gonna happen, so own it.
No one outruns it.
I'm gonna tell the world right now, I would like to have my body donated to science. I worked at a university, and my office backed up to the cadaver lab for years, and I used to have these nightmares about cadaver zombies coming through the walls because I backed up to the cadaver labs. And I want to know that my body is giving some poor nursing student or PT student nightmares. This is all I
want. My grandparents did that.
Did they?
When my dad's dad died in 1969, he was a biologist, he was a scientist. The one thing he wanted was to donate his body. And he died. My grandmother was a young, unexpected widow. He had a heart attack on New Year's Day and died. And the universities wouldn't take him because he was 42. He was too old. And they said, no, you're too old. We can't take him. So he was buried, and he's buried in Massachusetts. So when my grandmother, who just died in August, my grandfather died the June a year before, both of them in their aged years said, nope. My grandmother was like, nope. Now she learned they would take old people. She was all in. They wore like medical alert bracelets, only instead of like, give me insulin, it was I think it was University of Texas, Houston, I think, that picked them up. And, but my grandmother died right before Harvey. So they picked her up, but then it took a long time because they have to release the death certificate or something. Like there was some weird thing. And so
there's a lot of bureaucracy. Right,
and Stiff is a really great book about how cadavers are used in research.
It's a horrible book. Well, it's terrifying.
Okay, but if you want to donate your body to science, it's going to happen.
Well, I'm not going to be concerned with my body afterward. I'm done.
Well, if you want to know what's happening to my grandmother, you could read Stiff, and she could be in a medical. Like you can actually decide. There's some for-profit companies that are a little sketchy for body donation, so do it through a university. Around here, I'm not sure if you can do it. You have to be so many. It's like Panera. Panera will never be built here because it's too far away from the bakeries. Like I'm not sure if you can donate your body to science because we're too far away from the people that will pick you up because there's like a radius that you have to be. So Panera.
Maybe you're gonna have to look into that for her because that's what she wants.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So see if someone's gonna pick her up or not.
I will just drag you into the office.
You know what? Drag me in the back door and throw me in the cadaver.
It'll be like a weekend at Bernie's.
Terrify some poor PT undergrad.
I know they're always nervous about that part.
So you said, did you go through everything you said you wished you had?
Oh my goodness! Wait, did I talk about credit cards?
No.
Oh. Credit cards. So I go back and forth on this. And you think about things in retrospect.
Yeah.
We live in, I don't know the word for it. It's one of the states where you're not liable for your husband's debts. I don't know the term. So if you have credit cards that are separate, I have my credit card, you have your credit card. Our names do not touch each other. Then I'm not liable for your credit card debt after you die.
Oh, I didn't know.
So we had everything except for that.
However, on the flip side, if you have your accounts joint, as really down deep, I feel like you should, because you should be aware of each other's, debts and liabilities, then you are liable. And so credit cards are one that I go back and forth on. Ideally, we don't have credit cards, but we live in the world we live in.
Yeah.
And so credit cards I think you should be aware of what your partner's doing. I think that you should have access to their accounts. Again, those passwords are very important. But I don't know. I think the credit cards are one where you can sort of skip on having the joint accounts if you want.
Can I ask what happened with student loans?
Student loans are actually, as long as you haven't consolidated. your student loans, the deceased student loans are forgiven 100%. And that was actually the easiest of any of the processes.
Wow.
I had to send in a death certificate. They sent me a letter saying, I'm so sorry for your loss. The estate of his estate is no longer liable for this debt. Student loans really were the easiest. Some harder ones was like the water district and like changing the names over from his name to mine. Like the smaller ones were actually harder than the big corporations. So, but yes, credit cards are an interesting one that you could go back and forth on. I don't know. It depends on what
Probably the easiest thing is to just try to not have them. Not
have them.
Yeah.
Exactly. Precisely.
So I actually listened to, it was timely, but I listened to a Death, Sex, and Money podcast this weekend with Sheryl, Sandberg, and Katie Couric talking about being widowed. And like Katie Couric's husband died of cancer,
right?
So she had time to prepare, and Sheryl Sandberg's husband died suddenly. So one of the things that they said that I thought struck me, and it kind of, you guys know my own little like, what's the word? Like, I don't want to say pet peeve, but almost like superstition about, I hate it when the people say, I wish the kids wouldn't grow up.
Yeah.
Kids supposed to grow up. And so Sheryl Sandberg said her like sister-in-law was turning 50 or something, and she was like, Dave never got to turn 50. You should be so happy you're turning 50. And another superstition I have is that if I'm gone for a conference or if I take the kids, I said even before this happened, I never said, well, I'm a single parent this weekend. I think that it's one of those things that can be really, to me, I was like, no, I'm not a single parent for a weekend. Like, if you're a single parent, you are a single
You're a
friggin' parent.
Right. 100%
I'll say like,
single
oh,
parent.
I'm flying solo, or I have the kids, or, you know, Dave's working tonight, so it's a girls' night. But like, that's a conscious thing that I never say, I'm a single parent this weekend, because I'm not. I
appreciate that. You know, this is one of my widow pet peeves, and true single parents understand this. Like, there are single parents and there are co-parents.
Yes.
Co-parents are not the same thing as single parents.
I'm not even a single parent or a co-parent, and it actually irritates me.
Yeah.
When you go around these, especially for school, because I'm hearing it a lot at schools, and people go around their table and they'll say, hi, I'm a single mom, but they're not a single mom.
No.
Because their ex
is still part of
the life. They either go there every other week or whatever they do. It's not technically a single mom.
If something were to happen to that single mom, there is another parent.
There's another parent.
If something happens to Jamie.
There's not another.
There's not a direct line to somebody.
What are some other like widow pet peeves that you could share?
There are some things that people say to widows, like it was.
I hope I never said anything. I never said that.
Well, you never said that, but you know, it's a lot of them are religious. It's God will open a new door or things like that. Oh my gosh, they drove me absolutely crazy. Or, well, you'll move on very quickly. You're young. That one. Like, you're young, so you'll be fine. Like, let's see. Some other ones were, I was asked, said, you'll remarry within 2 days. I swear to you, within 2 days, someone said to me, don't worry, you're so young, you'll get married again. And it's like, come on.
That almost seems like a really patriarchal, like, you are nothing without a husband.
You're nothing without
I don't
a
know.
husband.
That creeps me out in general.
There are a lot of kind of creepy people out there who are very opportunistic, and so there were some men who were like talking to me within a couple of weeks who were like, I just felt very sketchy. Like, let's go out for coffee, which wasn't okay with me. And there are lots and lots of things. And there are other people who come up to you and they want to tell you their story. Like, I totally understand what you're going through because my third cousin twice removed,
I had a goldfish once.
Exactly.
There used to be 2 goldfish and one died. And, R.I.P. goldfish.
So those are the ones. The best people are the people who, when you're going through something really traumatic like that, they drop off toilet paper and Kleenexes. And like, I know you're going to have a lot of house guests. You'll probably run out of toilet paper. Here you go. Here's your 24-pack of Charmin. Or, you know, I know you're going through some things. Here's a box of Kleenexes. Those are the best possible things. Or I would love to walk your dog. I would love to shovel off your driveway. Those little things that, you know, it's a huge burden in the moment. And so if you're looking for something to do, something nice to do for somebody who's recently lost a loved one, offer them toilet paper.
I remember, and this is not me comparing at all, but when I was in when I was in my early 20s, an ex-boyfriend died. It was very unexpected. It was totally not the same, but I had to leave town to go to the funeral. When I came back, my neighbor, who was my friend who lived downstairs, went into my apartment and because it was sudden, I had to leave, washed all my dishes, did all my laundry, cleaned my apartment. So when I came home, it was clean. And I remember thinking, this is the nicest thing anyone could do for me.
Nice thing anybody can possibly do.
And it was so simple, and it wasn't showy, and it wasn't, you know, she didn't need. One of the things I have, by the way, I just explained the VIP section on the iPhone, where when your phone's asleep, it will still ring through, and I still have you. So if you ever have an emergency, you're on my VIP list. I was telling her, so like.
Oh, you should explain this, because this is really interesting. I didn't know. Because a lot of people sleep with their phone silent, or they sleep with it on and listen to all the dings all night because they don't want to miss an emergency. Right. This is really cool.
So in the iPhone, it has a favorite section in your contacts. So you can put it on Do Not Disturb. So I don't get the dings. I don't get... And, like, of my friends... Sorry, you're not on there, Kelley. So if you text me at 11 o'clock, sucks to be you.
I'm just going to die, I guess.
But it's like my parents, my sister, Dave, the school snow line, because they always call at 5 a.m.
5 a.m.
And you. Like, it is so that if... There is because we don't have landlines anymore. If there's an emergency in the middle of the night, it will ring through, and so I would always get it. So if you ever had an emergency, I can answer that phone. And the other thing
Gretchen's rescued me in more than one emergency. I'd just like to make this clear.
And another one too to know if you have a friend who has an iPhone, if they have that setting turned on, if you are not in their so Kelley, if you weren't, I'm telling you right now, you're not in my favorites list, so I don't get your text at 4 a.m. when you get up.
Yeah.
But if you needed to reach me, if you call twice within 3 minutes, it will ring through because the iPhone will say something is obviously wrong.
Right.
So it's kind of like the old pager 911 thing. So you call twice if you need me in an emergency. Don't call me twice otherwise.
Deal. I've called you before in an emergency, but I guess your phone wasn't on sleep.
Which, no, I was awake. It was before 10. Like, mine is set to be like 10 to 7 is Do Not Disturb. So my phone isn't buzzing all night unless it's the 5 a.m. snow call or if it's an emergency, which I hope it never is. Knock on wood. Do you have what are your questions or what are your...
So those are the things because this, your husband's death was very public. And so I didn't know you, but I knew about you.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, I didn't live around here.
We live in a small town, so everybody knows.
Well, I was in southern Maine at the time. So my sister was at
I always figured I'd just escape to southern Maine, but apparently that's not an option either.
I was putting my kids to bed, and I came downstairs, and my sister and her best friend were over at our house that night, and they were both crying on my couch.
Seriously?
And I said, what the heck's going on? And they were they got an email. So I didn't know you at all, but I thought, she will definitely leave town. And it's so interesting to me because you haven't moved, so you're in the same house, you're in the same neighborhood.
So I should say,
obviously, you're in the same house.
So my husband was a teacher in town, and he suffered from some severe mental illnesses, and those illnesses caused him to make some very bad choices in life. And those bad choices led to his eventual arrest. However, instead of being arrested, he decided to take his own life. And so this was a very public thing for the city, for students. I mean, he was a high school teacher, and so a lot of people were affected by this. And there's a lot of trust that you place in your public school teachers, and so you expect a certain level of law abiding from them. So that's where it's all coming from. And I don't think I've ever met anyone who lived here at the time who didn't know my story. Yeah. But it was very public. Anyway, so I stayed in town because I can't live without this town. This town actually wrapped its arms around me and took very good care of us. And so I wasn't aware of most of what was going on in the background to make sure that my son and I were very insulated from this very public thing that went on. But I know that people protected us and that people took really good care of us, and I had food showing up on my door every day and lots of Kleenexes and lots of toilet paper. And so we were set, and so that's why I didn't leave. It was like, you can't leave your support network, and this was our support network, so it was important to us.
And living in Southern Maine at the time, I would have never understood that.
Yeah.
And it's only after I've come back here and moved to a very similar neighborhood. Our neighborhoods are very similar.
Mine's better.
I know, I've heard.
For the east side, it's okay.
It's all right over here.
There's like this, so you have to understand there's this whole like east side, west side, waspy gang war that happens. I know that, so one of the things is that when that happened, we had your son for a while before he knew. And the thing that I did...
Gretchen was the one who I called to come and pick up my son.
The thing that I did is we went home, it had snowed, and Dave played outside with them forever, and I was like, what is your favorite food? And I forget what he said. It was either like chicken nuggets or macaroni and cheese. It was one or the other.
Those are the only two foods he eats.
And I was like, okay. And I was like, I'm not making that. I'm going to give you a peanut butter sandwich. Like, I'm going to give you something. Because I was like, this was my thought process. It was such a crazy day, was I do not want to ruin his favorite food. So that was what I did. That's what I was doing across town. Like, what's your favorite food? What? Okay, I'm not going to fuck that up for you. You get to keep your dino nuggets forever.
Awesome.
I'm going to give you salad. You're hungry? Eat the salad.
All Brussels sprouts today.
So that's what was happening across town that day.
Yeah, no, I had no idea. I remember you coming to pick him up. I remember I couldn't find socks. You know, your brain just does not work, and it's like, my kid has no socks, but it's cold out, but I need to put socks on him, but I have no socks, and I don't even remember where it comes from. That's all I remember.
Socks.
I just remember socks.
They played on the swing set, they built a fort, they built a snowman, like they just did like a million things, and I did not serve him his favorite food.
You know what? That's another important piece to this conversation. If the worst happens, who's your person? Who's the one person that you're going to call that day to say, hey, I need this. This is what I need right now, this instant. And they won't ask any questions, and they will just show up and take care of what you need. And if you don't know who that person is, you need to sit down and think about it, because you have to have.
And sometimes I think it's maybe even saying you're the person, because
absolutely.
It's almost like when they say there's an accident and you have to point to someone and say, you call 911. Like, who is it?
Right.
Who's
your person?
So that's why I said, if something happens, you need to tell Dave, here's where it is, you know?
I will totally be your person.
And so you have that piece of information, that you have that other person, because the person who's in close might
not be able
to see it. Right.
Yeah.
So I've always been really technical, and all these things are really important, and obviously I fully agree that everyone should have life insurance and the passwords, and I even thought about Netflix. Gosh, you gotta get that changed.
You know what though? Now it's
maybe
kind
you
of
kind of like
it's a thing in the house.
Yeah. Okay, there he is saying hi. But I've had this newfound revelation that actually social connectedness and community may be the most important.
I really think it is
component of life. Like the best thing you could do for yourself. And I, like I said, I was down in Southern Maine. I knew this happened. I went to the school, so I was very aware of it. All what was going on. And then I moved here. So the first thing I thought is, well, that woman, she's going to move out of town. And then I moved here, and I lived here for quite a while. I met Gretchen. And somehow one day I put it together that you were the woman. And I was like, gosh, she didn't leave town. I don't understand it. I couldn't understand it. It was only maybe until this summer I actually thought of you. And by the way, this is the first time we've ever met.
Yeah.
I go,
we're getting personal.
That's not creepy at all.
No, it's not creepy at all. So I go, I totally get why she didn't leave.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
You can't leave this town.
You can't leave.
This town is amazing.
When you have this type of community, you can't even explain it to somebody. I was trying to explain it to my good friend who lives in New Hampshire, but she grew up here, but not in Bangor, in a neighborhood. She's like, well, I don't understand why people live there. I'm like, well, and I couldn't even explain it. I was like, well, it's just like, you got people who are there. Honestly, it was so weird. I couldn't even put I couldn't even put words around it. I said, you can walk outside and there's something to do. There's people you can trust. If you want to get passionate about something, there's people who are on board. people who are there for you. Your neighbor will watch your dog. You know, I can't explain it, but I totally get why you didn't move. So I think even though there were some things that you didn't have planned, you did have a lot of things going for them. Maybe other people in your situation, they might have had $500,000, but nobody.
No network.
No Gretchen to pick up the son, no toilet paper deliveries, no, Powers Out wine night in the neighborhood, no book club. I don't know what you guys do over here in Little City, but you wouldn't have
But we read over on the west side. We allegedly read. We have a book club, which Ingrid says, I had it at my house, and Ingrid was there, and she kept sneaking down. And the next day she was like, I never saw any of you with a book. Because Ingrid thought we'd all be sitting there like curled up reading our books. Like we read the books before and then we talk about them.
Yeah, I've read 2 books.
Yeah, we don't lie in this neighborhood.
This is the honest side of town.
Any other things that you would offer as advice for someone to plan for the unexpected, or to offer for if there's somebody who listens who has found themselves in this position, and after your neighborhood people, your local people, you've gotten all your banks, are there any resources or anything like that you would share?
I didn't actually use a lot of online resources because this community was so amazing that people who I didn't really know, they came up to me and said, here's my story. It might not be your story, but here's my story. Maybe we can share that together. Or people who didn't know me at all came up and said, hey, I'm standing beside you. And so, no, I in my personal situation, didn't need to reach out. However, there are tons and tons of communities for young widows. There are tons of communities for suicide survivors. There are tons of communities for even widows who are older but might have lots of questions about their relationship before they were widowed. All kinds of things out there on the internet, and I've run across a few of those over the years, and they're amazing, and it's a good place just to type down your story and get it out in this non-judgmental community. The things that I would want every single young woman, 26, 36, 46, I don't care how old you are, but as long as you're new in a relationship, to take away, get your red file. Put all your stuff in it right away and spend the hour it's going to take. The second piece is talk to your partner. Know what they want. Know where their kind of debt liabilities are and where their assets are. And don't just assume that everything's taken care of, because it might not be. Get the life insurance. That's the number one most important thing that anybody can take away from this conversation. And really talk to people around you. Make sure you've got that person who knows where all of your stuff is, who knows you, and who will be your point person if the absolute worst happens. So that's what I'd want them to know.
All right.
And then in terms of the suicide, is there anything different that you would do as a spouse to someone who committed suicide before it happened?
My situation is very unique,
Yeah.
and my husband's decisions were very unique, and so a lot of
I think they're all unique.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of the mental illness and a lot of the distress that leads to suicide has to be treated on a very individualistic basis. But I didn't have any clues of what was going on before my husband, number one, committed the acts that he committed, and number two, killed himself. And so sometimes it's hard to even know your partner, your best friend, this person that you've lived with for 10, 15, 20 years. And so just keep that line of communication open, but also look for any kind of signs, or just keep an open mind if you see them struggling. But again, there are lots of things that even as a partner, you just can't know. And so yeah, I don't have a lot of good advice for anybody out there.
So it blindsided you?
Completely and totally blindsided me. Yeah, I had no clue. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I knew that he suffered from depression and other disorders. However, I didn't know the extent of it, because sometimes
there's a huge percentage of people that suffer from depression.
Exactly.
And it's such a spectrum. And yeah.
And we had lots of good conversations about it, and he was in treatment, but I didn't know the extent. So, yeah.
All right. Well, Want to turn to favorite things? Is that too much of a segue? My favorite thing.
My favorite thing after the suicide conversation is
being here. No. Do you want to switch to that? I know it's a little weird.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So, do you want to start?
I'll start. I had to think of a new favorite thing.
Because I stole hers twice.
You stole.
I just stole it the third time.
So my favorite thing used to be my key code door lock. I got it first, and then Gretchen copied me, and then it would have been my favorite thing until last week when you stole it. So I had to come up with a new favorite thing, and it is my toilet bowl light. I love this thing.
Was that going to be yours today?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
But I do love it.
It is a motion sensor light.
Yes!
You walk into the bathroom at night, and there's this little thing that hangs off the side of your toilet pointing down into the water in the bowl that like points an LED light, and it changes colors. And so you're like looking at the toilet bowl, and first it's red, and then it's orange, and then it's yellow, and then it's green, and then it goes on. And it is awesome at night.
Okay, so you are the only girl. You are the only woman in your house. Dave was the only man in our house. I'm thinking the toilet light is kind of lost on girls who would immediately dim the light upon using the toilet.
It as a female.
Really?
It's just cool. It's just,
I do not like the red.
It's just fun.
You look down at the red.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
There's just
never
a bunch
thought
of
about that.
So it might be great for boys for aim purposes and for.
Well, the motion sensor is
it's the perfect night light.
It is, and it picks up from quite a distance. I'm actually impressed because did you get it on Amazon?
Yeah, absolutely.
I did too.
It's like
so is
$2.
Amazon giving you a recommendation now on Facebook?
No.
Okay, so now
That's just you.
It's in my feed every day. It's some trendy thing that I will love, and I love them all. It's terrible.
Everyone should have a toilet bowl light.
I saw it and I go, I need to get that. So I ordered it. I ordered it right from my Facebook feed, and it is really cool. I love it. It is. It's a great night.
Do you have them for both bathrooms?
I don't, but I'm going to get one for the other one. I got it. I put it in James's stocking for Christmas.
It's like you feel like it should be a gag gift, but it's really functional.
It's actually great.
Yeah.
It picks. You know where my kitchen is to my bathroom. If you walk out into the kitchen, it pings from there.
It can be pitch dark and this thing still picks up on you.
Can you do Alexa? Can you have Alexa do it?
I wish.
Oh. So what is Alexa? Do you have to connect her to your Alexa?
My other favorite thing is my Alexa. I live in the house of the future, and everything is connected to Alexa in this house. So all the lights.
Well, she it didn't wake her up.
Oh, and she's listening now.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
But more importantly, I have Alexa at multiple locations. So we have 3 in the household. I have 1 at my office, and I have 1 in Augusta, where I spend a lot of time.
Gosh.
And so, like my son, he walks home from school, and he can call me at my office or on my phone. Like it rings to both places on my Echo. And so, like, I've got this constant communication. Or I can be lazy in bed in the morning, and I need to wake him up in a different room, and so I just do it through the intercom system on It's so lazy.
Wow.
It is fantastic.
I never understood Alexa. I'll have to get a tutorial.
I will show you everything you need to know about Alexa.
I bought one for Dave last year, and he had just finished reading 1984.
Ah.
And so he does not like it, and it's mostly unplugged and in a drawer because he's convinced.
But you know what? Send it on over here. I'll take good care of it.
So what's your favorite thing?
So I got this new wine glass tumbler. It's an insulated wine glass. It's not even a glass. It's like tin.
Stainless steel.
Yeah, stainless steel. Sorry. It's been a really long day.
It's made of lead.
It's stainless steel, and it's pink, and it has a top. And it's great. I actually haven't had wine out of it yet, but I've been drinking water out of it. It's awesome.
Does it taste like metal?
No, it doesn't actually. I haven't had wine out of it yet, though. I'll let you know when I have the wine out of it. But I got it for Christmas. It's actually the perfect water cup because you know all the water bottles are so big, and it's kind of weird to walk around your house with a big water bottle everywhere.
Isn't it weird to drink water out of a wine glass, though?
It's more of a rounded tumbler.
It is. You saw it. You saw it last night.
It's like a stemless.
It's cute.
wine glass. It's a
let's send a picture of
curved
it.
tumbler. It's very delicate.
It fits in my hand really well.
So,
Why
how is
haven't I
it
had
different
one?
from a glass?
I don't know. It's lighter.
It's prettier.
It can't break. It
No
has a
one can
top.
tell
It's like a sippy cup. It has a top, and it just has a tiny
If
little
you're holding it, you can be like, no, this is just water. I know it looks like a wine glass,
Right.
but no, it's just water, but it could be wine.
Exactly. It could go both ways. Because, see, my kids, I've had only water out of it, so the kids have been drinking water. They think it's cool to take a sip out of it, so they're just going to think it's a water cup. That's really...
Until there's wine in it and they take a drink out of
Yeah.
it.
Ooh.
All right, so my favorite thing is going to be my snow broom, which if Dave listens to this, is going to laugh because I've only used it like twice because I got it for Christmas. But he got one, and he works for a company that has several car dealerships. And this is the broom that they use at the car dealerships when they have to clean off like 1,000 cars after a big storm. And it's like this foam pad on a long stick, and there's no brush, there's no bristles, there's no scraper, and it just pushes the snow off, and it seems to work so well. He had one in his car, and I had like a long brush, and now that after I tried his, I was like, I really like that, so he wrapped me up one for Christmas, and so I actually just used it to come over here because it is snowing again.
What's it look like?
It looks like it looks like a big Swiffer. But without the pad, like a big foam pad. I'll have a link to it, and I forget, like there's a million different kinds, but they're where you guys are laughing at me.
It's the headphones.
It's the headphones.
Gretchen went super high tech on us tonight. She's got a sound system headphone.
It's pretty awesome. Well, because Dave got us a new audio rig, so we'll see how this sounds. It's gonna be echoey, so he's gonna bitch about that because Jamie has a very lovely home without a lot of heavy curtains and stuff like that. So it's going to be a little echoey, and I know Dave, but it'll be fine.
I'm hoping you brush off my car with your super brusher.
Oh, I'll totally brush off your car. I'll be like,
Actually, while you're out there, can you just go ahead and take care of my roof?
Yeah, it's kind of like a roof rake only for cars, and it's made of foam. Yeah, exactly. So I was digging that today when I got to use it and pulling out of work today when there was snow that I didn't realize had accumulated. So we have more snow, but it's no longer 12 below zero. I went to the grocery store on Sunday and it was 9 degrees, and the sample lady was like, isn't it warm out? I was like, I know, it's amazing. It's so great. So we're glad to be up in the 25 degrees, you guys.
It's supposed to be 44 Friday?
It's not. You're not supposed to talk about that.
Oh, I'm not? Oh.
No.
Sorry.
It jinxes it.
I was planning shorts, though.
All right, so we will have these on our show notes, and you can always find us on Facebook at Balancing Chaos. You can always leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And until next week, this is Gretchen and
Kelley
and
Jamie
saying bye.
Bye.
Bye.